All right, so we're going to give you guys a demonstration. We're going to go ahead. We're going to pump. We're going to pump down this indoor system and our outdoor system.
You gotta pump this pump.
You can see the half horse. You can see the half horse pump really throws the water. All right, so we have an indoor sump basin. This is pretty common. You guys see it in a lot of the videos. You see a lot of guys trying to use them outdoors. I don't really recommend that. You know, I'm going to show you why. We're going to give you a good demonstration why. You know, we're going to do a series on, sump pumps. We're going to do a series on the outdoor sump pump in particular, since that's kind of what we represent. All right, so if you want to learn about sump pumps and you want to know what is the right sump pump for your job, and if you're a contractor and you're trying to further your knowledge so that you can better yourself as a contractor, pay attention. Don't skip around. Don't try to jump around. Watch this video. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to explain to you how to read the GPM on a pump, and all the pump manufacturers have a chart showing you the head. The head is the height that you pump the water, okay? That's what it's referred to as head. And some pumps drop off, and the higher they're pumping up the water, the more they're going to drop off. So I'm going to go to a chart. I want to go through these charts with you. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at this model M53 Zoller sump pump. It's probably the most popular sump pump for basements and crawl spaces. It's a 1/3 horsepower sump pump, and it does the job for indoor use without any problems. It's actually the pump of choice for our little micro bad seed that we ship in a box. But take a look at this. I want you to look at this. It flows up to 43 gallons per minute. That GPM stands for gallons per minute. So that is the highest right there. That is its highest under optimal conditions. Flow rate is 43 gallons. Now, it goes on to say in the spec sheets, up to 19 feet. So we're going to look at the chart that Zoller Sump Pump Company gives us so that we can take a look at, as we pump higher, where we end up as far as with our GPM, gallons per minute. So here's a really nice chart that the Zoller Sump Pump Company gives us. Pump performance curve. We see at 5 feet high, if you look at the 5 foot, we're on the 5 foot line, we're at that optimal 43 gallons per minute. So this is what they call the total dynamic head. As they pump the water higher with the sump pump, you lose gallons per minute, the GPM. Now we'll bump it up from 5 feet ahead to 10 feet ahead. Take a look. We lose 10 gallons per minute. We go from 43 gallons per minute, that GPM, to about 33 gallons per minute in just a 5 foot difference in head. Now let's take a look at 15 feet. Look at 15 feet, go across to that curve. We dropped 20 gallons per minute at 15 feet. So for outdoor use, when you use a 1/3 horsepower, I recommend not discharging any further than 50 feet. And if you're trying to pump water uphill, you might want to rethink this and go to the half horse sump pump outdoors. Now, when you go to the max that the pump is rated for, which is 19 feet, you can see you just fall right off, like to 2 gallons per minute, it looks like. If you stare at this chart, up here near this 20 feet of dynamic head, total dynamic head at 20 feet, it looks to be about 2 gallons. So we're going to take a look at the M98 half horse and compare it to this M53. This M53 with its max flow rate of 43 gallons per minute. But as you can see, as you increase the head, it just falls right off. It's fine for indoor use. It's the weapon of choice. But let's consider outdoor, where we're pumping water far and we're pumping water uphill. Big difference. So let's take a look. You know, again, that's 43 gallons max flow rate at 5 feet. And you can just see how it just falls right off as you go to 10 and then 15. And especially when you get to the max, you know, that is rated at 19. I mean, you're just single digits you're pumping, single digit gallons per minute. So it's a big difference, a really big difference. You have to really pay attention, you know, to these pump performance curves, gallons. Here in the U.S., you know, we're looking at the gallons per minute, the GPM. All right, so now that we know how to read these, let's go on to the M98 Zoller sump pump and take a look at that. And I'm also going to give you guys a performance test. We're going to put the M53 Zoller sump pump next to the M98 Zoller sump pump in an outdoor application. All right, let's go to the M98. All right, let's take a look at this graph showing the dynamic head for the M98 half-horse Zoller sump pump. So you're going to notice right off the bat, this looks fantastic. I mean, 73 gallons at 5 feet ahead, that's awesome. So we're 30 gallons more than the 1/3 horse. We're able to, at 5 feet ahead, pump 73 gallons per minute GPM. That is fantastic. Where the M53 1/3 horse, its max flow rate was 43. So again, when we go to 10 feet, we're seeing about the same pattern. We're going to lose about 10 gallons per minute. When we go up to 10 feet high, we're going to drop from 73 gallons per minute to 63, it looks like. Then let's go to 15 feet, see where that puts us. You know, I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing here because the 1/3 horse, that would be at 15 feet, 20 gallons per minute. I'm seeing a GPM of 45 gallons per minute here. That's pretty fantastic for 15 feet ahead. You know, you're pumping water uphill. You got, say, a 100-foot discharge line out to the street. I mean, this pump's going to perform really, really well when you're trying to push water a long ways or uphill. And also, it has a higher max as far as for dynamic head, what it can actually pump. Instead of 19 feet, it looks like it's more like 23 feet. And yeah, you do finally, when you see this curve, gallons per minute, you know, the gallons just drop right off. These pumps, when they get near that max, I mean, Zoller Pump Company's telling you, yeah, it'll keep pumping and it'll keep pumping and keep pumping, and it's showing you the single digits. I mean, we're in single digits here, where you see that green line and that circle right there. That's single digits. So the half-horse pump is definitely the weapon of choice for most outdoor applications. And the M98 is a really, really good sump pump. You know, we use the M98 in most of our models. So let's get to a demonstration now. Let's show you these two perform side by side. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill this indoor sump basin with water. We already have the sump pump inside the basin. We've been getting rained on through this whole thing too as well. All right, so we got a lot of head. We put a lot of head on ours. We're over 20 feet tall on ours. And I'll explain why. We'll get to that. So I'm gonna let this run down. Now, I always teach you guys, the more head, and that's the lift, the more head, the less water per minute it's gonna pump, okay? So we got a half horse here. We got a 1/3 horse here. Can you see the stream difference? Same head. Actually, the half horse is higher. The half horse is a few feet higher. And look at the flow. Because of the lift, I mean, the half horse is going to pump more anyways, but it's not going to be taxed under that much head. It's not going to be taxed under the lift as much as the 1/3 horse. So it's taking forever to pump out this little, all right, so imagine this. You're pumping 100 feet, maybe even more, but let's just say 100 feet for round numbers. And you have an incline. Say the incline's only a few feet to get some water up and out of a backyard. Usually that's a minimum of 3 feet from the bottom of the sump pit. What's going to happen when you're pushing 100 feet and you got water in a discharge line that you are pushing 100 feet? You're going to slow that pump right down. The gallons per minute are going to drop right off. So this series is going to teach you so much about sump pump systems. And because we are the outdoor sump pump guys, we're definitely going to spend a lot of time teaching you what are the do's and don'ts to an outdoor sump pump system. All right, so we're pumping all the water. We're pumping all the water out of the traditional basin. Oh my God. Oh my God. Demonstration gone wrong, man. Good stuff, good stuff. Oh, geez. Welcome to the French Drayman channel. I'm your host, Robert Sherwood. We're in part 2 on our series, Outdoor Sump Pumps, the Basics, part 2. All right, so this is an indoor sump pit, which we do not recommend. And we have a failed check valve. And what's happening with this failed check valve, when the pump shuts off, the water that's inside the line runs back into this pit. The water then rises as it's returning back into the pit from the discharge line, and that keeps turning the pump back on. I thought this would be a really, really good demonstration to take this failed check valve that we came across out in the field when we replaced a burned up sump pump in a small indoor unit that was used outdoors that should never have been. We don't recommend using an indoor sump system. The guys that do sell these, look at this failed check valve is letting all the water come back in, and this pump keeps running. So you have this very limited, very small sump pit for the outdoors. When the check valve fails, it's going to turn the pump right back on. The water is going to run out of the discharge line. So there's 100 feet of discharge line on this, and this is a demonstration. We have a failed check valve from a job that we took out, an indoor sump basin, which we do not recommend. Always use an outdoor sump basin, but we took a failed check valve that burnt up a pump, and we went ahead and we replaced it with one of our outdoor systems. So this right here is why we don't use a check valve. So in this part 2, outdoor sump pump systems, I wanted to cover a couple of things. One, you never want to use an indoor basin. Indoor basins, very small, very limited. See how the water's coming back from that discharge line? Pump has to run, pump it out again. It pumps it back into this discharge line. This discharge line in this demonstration, it's a mock-up of us pumping water out of the backyard and pumping it out into the front yard. It's 100 feet of discharge line. When it shuts off, the water in the discharge line runs right back in because of the failed check valve. Now, we don't use check valves. That's what I want to get across right now. Outdoor sump pump systems, anywhere in the world, you do not want to put a check valve in it. If you have a discharge line running any, kind of length, if you need to get the water out of somewhere and you have a discharge line that's 75 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet, whatever it may be, if the check valve goes bad and you're using an indoor basin like you see here, once the pump turns off, all that water comes out of the discharge line, runs back down into the sump pump basin until the float on the sump pump itself turns back on. This keeps repeating over and over and over again. Now remember, an outdoor sump pump system, it's not like having this happen in your basement or your crawl space where you can hear it running. You hear the sump pump running continuously, and you start to recognize, wow, that's running a lot. It was running a lot yesterday. Heck, I think it was running a lot the day before. And you go in your basement and you go under your crawl space, you take a look, and you find out that you have something wrong with your check valve because the water just runs back and the pump keeps turning on. Outdoors, you're never going to figure that out because you're not going to be in your yard standing next to your outdoor sump pump system to recognize that this 100-foot discharge that's pumping the water, if you built it with a check valve, the check valve, once it fails, it takes out the sump pump. That's how that works. We don't build with a check valve for that very reason. It's a liability. You get rid of that when it comes to building outdoors. If you want to use a check valve indoors, of course, go ahead and use one indoors. I have one in my house on my basement system. Why not? You know, you're only lifting the water up out of the basement. It's not a big deal. I've had a check valve go bad in my home. The sump pump does turn on sooner because you have the water in the drain tiles filling it up, and then you have the water coming back that was in the standpipe to lift the water up out of the basement. But when you're in an outdoor application and you're pumping water a greater distance than just 10 feet, you're going to have all that water come right back into your outdoor sump pump basin. When your check valve fails, if you're using like this small indoor, sump pump pit, this is not meant for the outdoors. It never was. Guys, handymen, they went ahead and adapted this, and it's really a joke. It's very flimsy. Doesn't hold up to, say, lawnmowers driving over it, anything like that. It can't take it. It's meant to have cement poured around it. These go in a basement or a crawl space, and they have cement poured around them. It does give them more strength when you do that. So look at this sump pump. Just keeps pumping the water out, and this failed check valve that we took out of a job when we had to replace an indoor system that was like this. You see exactly what's going on. You have a very small sump pump pit. You got a check valve that you're relying on because there's just absolutely no room here for any kind of failure. A check valve is a wear item. When they wear out and they quit, the water just runs back from your discharge line and fills the sump pit again. So there's a few different things that we do to build what we think are the best outdoor sump pump systems for residential use, commercial use, DIY. Here we go. We just pump all the water out again. We have a failed check valve. All right, so let's just put this pump and this discharge line in ours so we can see the difference. All right, so now we have the exact same pump, 100 feet of discharge line, the exact same discharge line, and the exact same failed check valve. Now, I had to speed this up. So this is ×2 real speed. The reason why I had to speed it up, this is not that little tiny unit that belongs in a basement or a crawl space. This is a real outdoor sump pump system. This has a horizontal chamber. It holds a ridiculous amount of water. The reason why it holds a ridiculous amount of water is we don't want our sump pump short cycling. The purpose of this demonstration, we showed you that cheap indoor sump basin versus an outdoor sump system that's chambered. So the pump is pumping probably about 55 gallons per minute right now. Again, this is ×2 real speed, just because I didn't want to bore you guys to tears. If you made it this far, that congratulations, you're learning something. So we have, instead of just a vertical sump, we have a vertical sump with this big horizontal chamber. It holds a lot of water, which means when the pump turns off and the water runs back from this discharge line, because we never use a check valve, ever, don't have to. We use an outdoor sump system that has a chambered system. That way the water can come back out of the discharge line. It doesn't raise the float much at all because you have this big horizontal chamber. We're displacing such... Okay, right now the pump is pumped down and you're going to see the water come back in from the discharge line. And it's not going to really be much. It's not going to amount to much. It's not going to turn the sump pump back on like it did in that smaller basin. So there's many reasons why we like the horizontal chamber. Many reasons. One, just displaces more area, more water. You're going to, be able to build without a check valve. You never have to worry about that failure of a check valve. You get rid of one of the largest components that cause sump pumps to run repeatedly and burn up. You just get rid of that altogether. Less is more in so many cases, and this is the perfect example. So the water has all ran back from that line, filled just the bottom of this horizontal chamber. It's not very much, and that's it. Now this horizontal chamber does a lot of things. It gives you some on-site storage in the event that you have a power outage. It gives you the luxury of building without a check valve. And look, we're pumping the water uphill 100 feet, and all that water came back and is just laying in the bottom of that chambered sump pump system, and it's not turning the pump back on. So really important. And then the other plus is if you're in the north where you freeze, you don't want to use a check valve because it's going to hold water in the line when it is working, and you're going to freeze up. So our systems don't freeze up because we don't build them with a check valve. Welcome to the French Drain Man channel. I'm your host, Robert Sherwood. We want to talk about sump pump lines. We're going to give you guys the 101 of outdoor sump pump systems and the discharge line on how to deal with it. On the push, you want to use 1.5 inches on the push. Now I'm going to show you why, and I'm going to tell you why. So we have 200 feet of 1.5 inches on a 1/2 horsepower Zoller M98 outdoor sump pump system. When we finally get to the peak, the top of the hill, we go to our bushing that takes you from the 1.5 inch discharge to your 4-inch corrugated pipe. We're at the peak. So now on the discharge end, we're going downhill. Do not take your line to a 3-inch or 4-inch until you're going downhill. Once it becomes a gravity-powered system, you go to the bigger pipe, whether it's 3 or 4 inch, it doesn't matter. In this case, we used our high octane, solid, super strong, discharge pipe. Sump pump is still probably rocking 45, I'd say about 45 gallons per minute. That's pretty good on 200 feet of discharge line. Why are we still moving 45 gallons per minute? Because we only had an 1.5 inch discharge all the way up until the peak. Now, if we would have went to a 4-inch line and tried to push water uphill, you would just kill your sump pump system. If you're pushing water uphill in a 4-inch line, you're going to have more mass, more weight, more resistance in a bigger pipe. That's why an 1.5 inch discharge on an 1.5 inch pump, you take it all the way out to the front yard until you finally get to where you're over the peak, if you will. If you're flat, well, you're still pushing water. Keep it in an 1.5 inch line. If you can get it to where it's going downhill and it's gravity powered, take it to a 4-inch line like we did there. But this is 200 feet, and that sump pump is still moving a lot of water because it's only an 1.5 inch line, and we didn't try to put it in a bigger line. So that is one of the biggest things you have to be aware of. You'd kill your gallons per minute. Your pump would only be pumping out maybe 5 gallons per minute if you were doing a 3-inch discharge all the way, or if you went to a 4-inch. Well, now I've seen it to where it's just like a couple of gallons per minute. So now I'm going to show you a trick. I'm going to show you how to keep your sump pump at 70 gallons per minute. So if you have a fence on a property line, what we do is we put a discharge line up on a fence. I'll keep 70 gallons per minute because now it's gravity powered system. We're only pumping it up on the fence, and then we just have it angled out to the front yard. Obviously, that was an exaggerated, demonstration that we showed you so that you understood what it is we do. And I know people say that's going to look bad on the fence, but you know what? I never, ever sacrifice performance over vanity. It's not what I do. All right, guys, until the next video. Welcome to the French Drain Man channel. I'm your host, Robert Sherwood. I just wanted everybody to know, if you're going to purchase one of our outdoor sump pump systems, if you're going to do a DIY project, or if you're a contractor who's just trying to learn as much about this as he possibly can, value this sump pump video. I consider this probably one of the most important sump pump videos I've done, from the simple fact that it's so difficult to come back from if you don't do this part right in the first place. So don't jump around, because the comparisons are great and the video kind of builds on itself, and you're really cheating yourself if you skip around. Enjoy, everybody. So we're going to show you why it's important to always buy your sump pump system depending on how deep your trench is. That's how you dictate how tall your outdoor sump pump system needs to be. So we have our mock French sump up inside the sump pit 10.5 inches, plus you got whatever you have for a housing that this is sitting on. So let's just say 12 inches. We need 12 inches of water to turn this on. That's the problem, guys. If your trench is, say, 18 inches deep or 24 inches deep, and you only go down 24 inches, what's going to happen? Your sump pump, the water's going to rise. It's going to feed up into the French drain. Your sump pump's not going to turn on until it's absolutely flooded. Then once it's flooded, it will run. But what if the sump pump float comes up, the rain event quits, and it never turns on? This happens all the time. So your trench is full of water. Trees and shrubs sniff that out. Their roots find it. They fill your French drain system, and they take it out. So you want to go 12 inches deeper than your deepest trench to your sump pump system. That's one of the hardest things to teach, and I'm hoping this demonstration helps people out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to dig this out a little more, and we're going to put a deeper unit in, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. All right, let's stay to the end. We did a great demonstration. The guys put together such a good demonstration for you. You're going to want to stay to the end, because we're going to cover this in detail. It's one of the hardest things for us to teach, and seeing, hey, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, what's a video clip worth? Plus, we're going to use 2 different size chambers. We're going to put in a shallow chamber, and we're going to show you water backfeeding. I'll give you a little bit of a, play-by-play on the ground, and then we're going to dig out the sump pit to a deeper depth, and we're going to put in a much taller outdoor sump pump system, and we're going to show you guys the difference and how there's no chance at all that you're going to have any backfeed into your French drain, yard drain, roof runoff system, whatever it is that you're dewatering. You don't want the water to backfeed up into that system, because if it backfeeds up into the system and the water doesn't get pumped down, tree and shrub roots can find their way into that, because trees and shrubs are going to be able to smell that out during the drought season, and they'll just take out your drainage system. So let's get you on the ground here with the crew, walk you through the demonstration. Stay to the end. I think the guys did a really good job. We got this pump plugged in. So here's what's going on. Water is backfeeding up into the French drain system. Do you see it? The water is in the French drain trench. What does that do? That's going to turn your entire yard drain into a reservoir, and the trees and shrubs are going to smell that. Their roots are going to fill it. What could have prevented this? All right, a sump pump system, the float goes up and up and up and up, and it has to go all the way to the top before it turns on. So by the time you put this in a housing, so it's sitting on the floor of a housing, and then you got the throw of this, half horse. We usually use a half horse outdoors, and for this full frame demonstration,
we're using an M98. So there's 10.5 inches just from when this float turns off to when this float comes up and turns on. That's 10.5 inches. Plus you got a couple inches that the sump pump, you got to remember it's sitting on a housing inside a sump pit. So basically what I'm trying to say is you need to make your sump pit 12 inches, a full 12 inches deeper than your trench, okay? So if the trench is 12 inches, then you can do a 24. If a trench is, say, 16 inches, you need to go up in size. You have to do a 30 inch. So let's continue to do this demonstration.
Remember, there's a reason why we have so many sizes. We have several sizes. We have a 24 inch, we have a 30 inch, we have a 36 inch, we have a 40 inch, and we even have a 49 inch outdoor sump pump system.
All right, so we have a French drain trench here in our demonstration. It's got 1% slope. We're flooding this. We're getting closer, we're getting closer, we're getting closer. But meanwhile, what did we do? Look at, we're backfeeding. We got 1% slope. You can see there's ripples, good flow in our system. You know, we're flooding it. There we go. It just turned on. It just turned on. Now, to my point, if the rain event stops and you have your float up to the high position, what do we end up with? This backfeeds. This backfeeds and holds water is the problem. How do we prevent this? We go down 1 full foot deeper than our deepest trench. This is one of the hardest things to explain. Okay, so this right here has 10.5 inches of throw, guys. Think about that. All right, so we're digging this sump pit deeper so that we can put in a deeper housing. I want to show you guys the difference and why I encourage you to always go deeper when in doubt. You want your sump pump system to be a full 12 inches deeper than the lowest trench, the lowest portion of your trench. Now remember, if you're running a roof runoff system to your outdoor sump pump system, you got to measure the bottom of that 4-inch pipe, not the top of it. A lot of people make that mistake. Do not measure the top of these pipes, your trench, and measure the trench bottom. That's what you take your measurement from. And then you want your sump pump system to be a full 12 inches deeper. So if you need to go 30 inches, you need a 30-inch sump pump system. If you need to go 36 inches, then you buy a 36-inch tall outdoor sump pump system. I encourage this. When in doubt, always go deeper. You can't mess it up. If you go deeper, you can't mess it up. Can you go too shallow and get yourself in trouble? Absolutely. What happens when you go too shallow? When you go too shallow, you're backfeeding water into your whole drainage system. If you're in the north, that's going to freeze up on you. If you're in the south, well, during the drought season, the trees and shrubs are going to fill your French drain system, yard drain system, whatever that is that's holding water, the roots are going to fill. All right, we're getting pretty deep here. This is pretty cool. I got a 36-inch outdoor sump pump system housing that we're going to drop in.
If you're still with us, congratulations for getting the true benefit of this video. This is a great demonstration. Now, you've seen a demonstration with a shorter housing. What we did is we went ahead and dug a deeper hole. We're a foot deeper. So we started out at 24 inches. We had a 24-inch chamber. And we were going to show you guys, all right, here's an outdoor sump pump pit chamber housing. Let's show you what the difference is between that and the 30. But I wanted it to be a little exaggerated, so I told the guys, you know what, let's use a 36. Even though the fix would have been to go from the 24 to the 30, that would have been the fix. In this particular case, in this demonstration of said French drain trench on 1% slope, look at this. So I said, let's go 36 inches. Let's go a foot deeper. That way you guys can really see just how a little bit deeper makes such a big difference. So here we have, you know, our standard size trench, our French drain trench. And usually to get 1% slope, you can start out at 10 inches deep and then work your way deeper. And we started out at 10 inches deep. And then we worked our way deeper towards, the sump pit. It's not a very deep trench because it's not a very long trench. If it was long and we were going across a piece of property, well, then this would be a lot deeper. And you would definitely need a full 36-inch tall outdoor sump pump system. Again, in the first example, a 30-inch would have been a fix. Go from the 24-inch to a 30-inch. That would have been enough. But I just wanted to do it a little bit of an exaggeration so you guys can actually see what only a foot deeper does for you. Now, I also realized that foot deeper, that was a lot of digging just to get a foot deep. But the benefits speak for themselves.
Look at that. It's completely underwater. So what is it doing? It's running. It's on. It's in the on position. It's running. The water doesn't have to backfeed up into the French drain trench. If this was a shallower system, like in the demonstration with the 24-inch, I showed how it backfed up into the trench, okay? So look at the advantages of having a deeper sump pump pit. All the water's falling out of the French drain trench. It's falling down into the sump pump pit. This is a 36, then your deepest trench. Again, if you're running roof runoff to your outdoor sump pump pit, measure the bottom of the trench, not the top of the pipe. People make that mistake all the time. It's a common mistake. So this is why you want to dig a little bit deeper when you do your sump pump system. Always use the fabric that we sell that's 15 feet by 15 feet for your sump pump pit. It makes your job so much easier than trying to take little pieces of fabric and pin it all around the sump pump pit. Again, we sell a 15 foot by 15 foot piece of fabric to line the sump pump pit. This is a demonstration. This isn't a job site. We did this just for you guys. All right, we're going to cut the water to the pump to the French drain, and we're going to stop the water from flooding into the French drain. And then we're going to let the pump keep running for the sump pump pit. All right, so you see the water slowing down right here. This sump pump is still pumping. It's still pumping. Why? Because it's deeper. It's so much deeper than that trench. What would happen if this was shallow? The water would backfeed up into that trench like in the demonstration with the smaller housing. Look at that. Look at that. It's pumping all the water out of the trench. Every last drop. There's nothing in the trench. Nothing at all. You got to be at least 12 inches deeper than the lowest part of your trench. Keep that in mind. This is a 36-inch Screamin' Demon. Sump pump shut off. You can see there's just a little water in the bottom. The Screamin' Demon has that built-in basin in the bottom, so it pumps out your added chamber length and doesn't leave any water behind. People always want to know what the difference is between a Screamin' Demon and the bad seed. There it is. That's the difference. All right, guys, until the next video.